So I wanted to speak directly to the target audience here of people who are maybe considering their options and maybe haven't thought of this industry. So do you think there's anything that universities or maybe more relevant to you, employers could do differently to help people enter the industry?
Well, the one thing is always if I hire people is I look for their drive. So it's not so much that someone opens the door, but my advice is rather kick the door. Uh, and because one of the things is typically people don't have time. So if you kick once, they just, put it on the sideline and say, well, let's see. If you kick 2 or 3 times, people start getting the idea of, there's someone taking it seriously. There's really, they're with their heart behind a specific topic. Ultimately, that's the thing, what you need. Everything else can be learned. But if there's an inner drive to do things, that's basically what it is. So therefore, I'm looking, if I can help people, I'll typically look for their drive. Is there enough fire in them? And then it's opening the doors, making connections. It's, I don't want to spread out the red carpet.
Yeah.
But if people are willing and try and get out of their comfort zone, then I'm helping them to find the red carpet they can spread out in front of themselves.
Well, I know, speaking of knocking on doors, I think I had to knock on your door a few times to get you on this podcast, so I guess that works.
Yeah.
I guess I know you're telling the truth. So yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So and basically, if we talk specifically with quantum, because that's one of the topics we currently have, I think it's still emerging. I think there is, and what I perceive is there's a window of opportunity now, because maybe combined or in an analogy to the early 80s, in the 80s, beginning of the 90s in the classical computing industry, because today you still have the chance in order to comprehend the entire system. If you do classical computer science nowadays, you're really, really specializing in a specific thing, but you don't see the end-to-end. I have a few colleagues who told the story, in the C64 Commodore 64 times in the 80s when we were still pupils at school, we programmed them from end to end, from the input device to the output device. So therefore, we got an idea about this and leverage this with respect in the quantum industry, because that's your opportunity and that's a really rare skill in 10 years' time, because the progress will be so quick that people with oversight will be very, very rare and very, very searched for.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never really thought about it that way before. That's an interesting thought experiment, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
So if
yeah.
if you look at the frequency papers are published today, you can't, as a single person, currently
Oh,
you
no.
still can keep up with, let's say, the biggest trends.
Yeah.
But in 5 years' time, you will never ever be able to do that.
No, I agree. Well, I think people can't at the moment, from the discussions that I've had. But yeah, it's interesting. So we've mentioned a couple of names so far, some pretty famous people in the industry. But do you have anybody that you particularly look up to, or any role models? Or you've also mentioned a couple of books. So do you have any books that you would recommend to people?
If you want to become a leader, there's one book by two authors from the London School of Economics, and I have to think about it. I didn't look it up. It's basically the key line is, and we can put that into the podcast
Yeah.
notes. It's the key line is, you have to deserve that others, no, Who wants to be led by you, I think is the title of this.
Okay.
So leading is not that you actively lead, but other people allow you to lead. And I think that's the most important lesson for any person entering the industry, to keep that in mind. People allow you to be their leader. And then they follow you, and then they work. And that helps you specifically with respect to the fact that in most cases in industry or in any work, you don't have the formal authority about all the people. In some cases, you even don't have any formal authority, but you must lead by a different kind of mindset, by a different kind of fabric. And that sentence in mind, and that question is in mind, is a very, very good advice. So therefore, I recommend that book, specifically in knowledge-intensive industries. Because, one example, you can't force the bestseller author to write a new bestseller.
Yeah.
If you're the editor. Oh, you want him to be, you want to beat that bestseller author up with a stick or whatever? No, it doesn't work. Because the next bestseller is the spirit and the flow, etc., the right mood, the right ideas. It's not a machine.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And then it makes a huge difference. We are not talking about a few percent more productivity. We talk about orders of magnitude being better and more proficient.
Yeah.
And that's what your leadership gets out of people. Or if you do it really, really bad, people will never allow you to lead them.
Yeah. I've not heard of that book, but I will definitely look that up. Who wants to be led by you? Because that's an interesting concept. Move on to the final question, Carsten.
Yeah.
So, have you seen anything recently in quantum technology or just technology in general that really excites you?
As a matter of fact, if I look at technology overall,
Yeah.
I'm most excited about CRISPR-Cas9, so gene editing. I think that's one of the most fascinating things I can perceive. If I look down at quantum computing or quantum technologies, I think we are just at the advent of the power of entanglement and these things. So I think the most exciting thing about this is we don't know where we are in 10 years. My clear hypothesis is that things will go faster than we currently estimate. Well, typically, you can't look into the future. And so therefore, I put out that thought experiment where I said, what would happen if a company, an enterprise software company, comes out with an application this year? How would that shake up the industry and all the other things? And that is thought as a thought experiment, just to move the perspective from everybody's talking about 2035 to 2025 and what impact that has. So we don't know when that point in time will be there, but that's an interesting question. And to change that perspective, that's, think about it in that way. That's for me the most fascinating thing. And I don't believe that those applications we talk about today will be the applications we talk about in 2030 or 2035.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and I probably agree. And I think when we hit that inflection point or when that happens, I think we're probably just not ready for it at the moment. So it's definitely important that people think about that now.
We'll adapt. I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll adapt.
sure.
So, again, if you think about that, computing in the 60s, no one will ever have thought about a messenger app like Signal or e-commerce.
Yeah, yeah,
No way.
yeah,
So we don't have a clue what's going to happen. but there will definitely be things, and that's the exciting part of that. It's a new era. That's
Yeah.
for me the key thing. And just one anecdote, maybe to the end. My dad was basically, his job was heading the data centers of Deutsche Bank in the northern part of Germany. So I was, I knew the first computers I saw when I was 3 years old, and in the time between Christmas and the New Year, when they finalized their books, I was allowed to come to the data center as well, to one of the data centers and play
Right.
around there. So with the all cakes, magnetic discs, etc. And my dad one day in 1982 came with a IBM desktop PC, one of the first ones. He had access to that. And he put it on the table and said, we have that weekend, we are going to play around with that machine. And he said, these things will change the world.
Wow. And they did. He was right.
And it did.
Yeah.
Huge time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. It's I mean, it's interesting to see at what point we'll be able to say something like that about quantum computers.
I think a good advice would be to be sure that it happens, that it's going to change the world. We don't know how, we don't know when, we don't know even why, but keep that in mind and work on that.
Yeah. I think there's no better reason to work on it than that,
Yeah.
really. You know? Yeah, that's interesting.
And even if it's somewhere in physics, things we don't know yet, or we couldn't calculate so far.
Yeah, and that's the whole point.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I like it. Okay. I think we'll I think we'll finish on that note, because I like finishing it there. That's it's an interesting point to leave it on, I think. And I hope people will watch this and agree, and hopefully they can engage with us in the comments on that.
Yep.
But Carsten, thank you very much for joining
You're
us on
welcome.
this edition. I really enjoyed that one. I think this is one of those conversations that leaves me thinking about it for a couple of days, or I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and think about something. But so I really appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed this at home as well. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
Was a pleasure, Matthew. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast series.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Excellent.